Okay, Gemma, what's tip number 4, please?
Okay, it's kind of the converse. What you don't say matters.
Oh, I like what you've done there. Okay, tell me more about this.
Right, so 2 parts to this one. The first one is, don't assume that something is obvious. It's very easy for us as experts in mathematics to assume that what we think is obvious to our pupils. When we do that, we tend to not make things explicit. We tend to not say things, and then what happens is that we get a few lessons down the line, and a pupil makes a mistake or does something, and you go, "That's obvious. You should know that," but they don't, because I never actually made it clear.
Yes.
Because I just assumed that they would know this thing.
So
if I don't say something. Sorry, go on.
Any examples spring to mind there that you can think of?
I knew you were going to say that. So I a couple of years ago I was teaching a lesson on differentiation with Year 12, and we had expressions where they were algebraic fraction type expressions where we had something like x squared plus 3x on the numerator and x on the denominator, something like that. And I said to them, it was something along the lines of, right, off we go then, we've done loads of differentiation, let's have a go at this one now. And they all started to do really weird things, like differentiating the polynomial on the top and then differentiating the polynomial on the bottom and keeping it in a fraction. And I said, and I remember stopping at one point, going over to one pupil and stopping her and going, "Why are you doing that?" And she said, "Well, because you've told us to differentiate like this." And I said, "No, but this is a different type of function." And I suddenly realised that I hadn't actually explained to them that we need to split this up into separate terms and then differentiate each term separately. So that was completely on me, because I just assumed that they would know they had to do this.
Yes.
I would like to say this is a long time ago. It is a long time ago, by the way. But this is a perfect example of one of those things where you look back and you go, "Oh, obviously that's my fault, because I didn't explain that to you."
That's a really good example.
So if you don't say something, it matters.
That's really good, and I know I'm interrupting you because I know you've a second part to this, but just on this, do you think that comes down to, a lot of that can be solved just by the choice of examples that you use? Because I fall foul of this all the time, and to use your differentiation was a great one there. If you're really careful about your selection of examples, and particularly kind of boundary examples, things that right on the edge of either fits into the concept or doesn't, then it solves quite a few of these kind of curse of knowledge problems, because you're forcing the kids to attend to a wider variety of examples, so they start to make those connections a bit clearer. Do you reckon examples are the key to this?
Yes and no.
I knew you were going to say that.
Sorry. You know me too well. Because we can never give examples for every single possible misconception our pupil's going to come across. Yeah. So I think what we need to do is direct our examples towards the most common things and what we might perhaps term the most important ideas to communicate. And then as we go through, there are going to be times where something else crops up and you're going to have to address it there and then, but you're never going to be able to predict all of those things. So what I wouldn't want to do is say yes, because an unintended consequence of that might be that kind of people's lessons turn into just example after example after example, and look how this one's a bit different, look how that one's a bit different. But actually, when our pupils start to get more fluent in the way the mathematics is working, whatever bit we're doing, they are able to deduce these things for themselves in a lot of cases. And that's okay as well. And I would go further and say that's okay. That's really important that they start to kind of apply what they've learnt in unusual contexts. It's hugely important. But when there are more obvious things, really important things that you want to make sure that the pupils absolutely are aware of, yes, definitely highlight it in an example.
Got it. What was your other thing you were going to say about this tip, Gemma, before I cut you off?
Oh, well, only just in the context of what you don't say matters. That also goes towards creating the culture you want in your classroom. So everything you do as the teacher will contribute either intentionally or unintentionally to the culture in your classroom. So your body language, the care you show to your pupils, the attention you show them by asking them questions about what they do. John Mason wrote a lovely chapter in a book a while ago, and I'll send you the link, Craig, about questioning and how you show care to pupils through questioning and show that you value their thinking. And all those things, although they're not explicitly about about the kind of maybe like a utilitarian aim of teaching mathematics. What they're about is showing pupils that their thinking is valued and their contribution is valued, and that you have high expectations of them, and it helps to communicate what you expect a mathematics classroom to look like.
That's lovely. That it's just made me think off top of my head. And again, thoughts off the top of my head are always high risk because they've not been processed at all. So this will be suboptimal as well, Gemma. I'll warn you in advance now. There's been a lot of chat on the Tips for Teachers podcast so far about use of mini whiteboards, and I've recorded a few videos on this and so on. Just you saying that's made me think that one of the big advantages of mini whiteboards that I don't think I've ever heard before is that it communicates to the kids that every answer matters. Whereas, you could, if I'm teaching and I just ask you a question and Joe Morgan sat in the class, you might be thinking, well, he's only bothered about Gemma's answer. He's not really concerned about mine. Whereas if the kids are answering, if every child's answering every question and showing you on the mini whiteboard, even if you don't pick up on their answer, you're at least communicating that you value their response, if that makes sense. And I don't often hear that mentioned in the context of mini whiteboards.
I think I mentioned it earlier about being trying to be very conscious about everything you do in the classroom, but understanding that every single action of yours will have an effect.
Yes.
So you want to make sure that your actions communicate that every pupil is important, that every pupil's thinking is important, and that you expect every pupil to think hard, and that you expect that every pupil to work hard. And what you don't say is also communicating all of these things.
Yes, that's lovely. Love that one.